Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a look at the brand new Transformers War for Cybertron Kingdom Core Class Soundwave. Soundwave is number 21 in the Kingdom line, and he is a brand new mold based obviously off of his iconic G1 appearance, so he's just a simplified version of, the Voyager class toy. And naturally he's meant to scale with your other core class G1 characters. Now, one thing that makes me a little sad is up until this third wave, I had been under the belief that the core class guys, or at least, the G1 characters, were meant to scale with the arc that was going to come out. Well, turns out, no. No, there's nothing going on between the core class and the arc at all. In fact, the arc uses those like tiny little slug figures. It comes with one of Optimus, so ouch. Now I'm a little more conflicted about, going all in on these because I don't normally go for like multiple size classes of the same character in a line. Like I didn't collect the Combiner Wars Seeker Jets at the Legends class level because I didn't see any point. So I feel a little deceived, but at the same time, Hasbro really never explicitly said that was a thing. A lot of people just assumed it. So, oh well. On the plus side, all of the core class figures have been pretty solid so far, so I'm not too upset I got them. I mean, yeah, they're redundant, but you're either a completionist or you're not, and I tend to lean toward, being a completionist. So if you've seen my reviews before, you know how this goes. We're going to take a look at Soundwave's packaging, then we'll open it up, we'll see the instructions, and then we'll see Soundwave himself in both alternate and robot modes. Naturally, I'll be doing some group shots and comparisons today, and then at the end of the video, I'll give my final thoughts. So Soundwave comes in your standard core class packaging, which is still the old blister style, which, it works for the size, though I kind of hate blister packaging because you have to destroy it to open it, unlike a box where you just, lift a flap, but oh well. You can see Soundwave front and center here. Got some accessories. Is a little shoulder-mounted cannon. Is a little handheld blaster. I think Laserbeak's already in his chest because he does come with a little non-transforming Laserbeak, which is cool. This really cool artwork of him up here, which I think is actually based off of the Voyager class figure. It looks like it's got those details, like the shoulders and everything. Could be wrong, but it looks like the Voyager class. So either way, looks good. Let's see, core class call out, and then on the back you get his renders for alternate and robot modes. It only takes 8 steps to transform, but it's core class, so can't be too complicated. And that's really all there is to see there. Nothing too special. With little packaging comes little to look at. All right, so let's open this guy up now. So here's our little instruction booklet for Soundwave. You can see this little render of the guy on the front. Got him in kind of a weird, like cowboy pose with his legs there. I don't get what's going on. Got his name, his number, Kingdom number 21, symbols, all that fun stuff. Here we get a quick little how-to for where to place his weapons in his robot mode, and then how to open his chest door up. And again, there's no button to open it this time. You got to manually pry it open because it's so small. And then you can either place the Laserbeak cassette in or take it out. And then over here, we get straight to the transformation. So you start robot mode. Goes all the way around to the back. And it shows you how to transform him to his cassette tape mode. Or cassette player mode, And it's even got where to place his 2 accessories in the back. Very similar placement to the Voyager class Soundwave. And then another how-to for the cassette door, in case you need that again. Okay, now we get Soundwave in his cassette player mode. And you see from the front, it looks pretty clean. You can see the outline of his torso a little bit, but it's not too bad. One thing that bugs people about this toy is the fact that his toes kind of stick up past the corners a little bit, which does kind of break the silhouette and doesn't make it look very realistic. So some people have actually opted to fold the feet up like this, which adds more bulk on top, but also makes them a bit more rectangular overall. So that is an option you have, and it doesn't look too bad. It actually looks a lot like what the Voyager class toy has going on. So it's not really perfect in either, configuration, whether the official one or the fan-made one. So, you can see you got the buttons here. Obviously, they don't do anything. And then you get your cassette door, which you have to just kind of reach in and swing open. And here you can see Laserbeak on the inside. We'll take this out. And that is what the Laserbeak cassette looks like. Just one solid brick of black plastic. That's painted on one side with his, traditional red and silver. And that's all it does. It's really just there as an accessory. When you turn around to the back, you can see he's got a setup very similar to the Voyager class Soundwave from the Netflix line. He's got the arms just kind of folded back and sticking straight down, and then he's got his two weapons on the sides here, kind of forming additional back support so it doesn't flop backwards. So yeah, it really truly is just a shrunken down version of the Voyager toy, more or less. Obviously, not completely, but yeah, it's much more so than the previous core class G1 guys. He really, really just looks like his Voyager toy, so that's pretty cool. Here is the aforementioned Voyager toy in his cassette player mode. And you can see on the front, they do look very, very similar. They get the same little ridge details here in the corner. The stripe, the buttons, all that. He's got kind of an extra gray bar going across the bottom that this guy lacks, but pretty small detail. See, I've got Laserbeak inside just for, real proper comparison's sake. You want to see them both deploying Laserbeak in some way. There's that. And these are the little gray bits I mentioned that kind of, resemble the bottoms of these feet. So it's up to you what you want to do with this, if you want to make it look more like this toy or just leave it flatter on the sides. And then swapping around to the back, that's what I was talking about. The arms doing the same exact thing on both toys. They both have their weapons just kind of down against the bottom here. They are kind of swapped on each one, where the shoulder cannon's on the left side for him, right side for him, and vice versa. Of course, this guy comes with a third weapon that the core class Soundwave lacks. But again, we're talking $10 toy, $30 toy, so there's going to be a lot more differences besides just the size. All right, now it's time to transform our little Soundwave. So if you haven't already, go ahead and remove his accessories from the back here. Leave them free, set them aside. The Laserbeak you can leave in here. It doesn't affect the transformation anyway. So you can flip the feet up if you have them folded down, or maybe you already have them up like this. And we're going to extend the legs out. Just kind of untab from the side here. Bring them down. Turn them forward so the feet are facing toward you now. And we swing the arms out. Flip out the fists. Then you got to get out his head, which the back doesn't open like it does in the Voyager, so you got to just kind of use your nails or something and pry his head out of there, which is kind of a pain. In fact, you can probably use this to... nah, maybe not a good idea. Looks like I might scrape some paint. So, yeah, that's not the best. It should come out more easily than this. It's like dealing with some of the fists on the old Combiner Wars figures. Here, you know what? This works a lot better. So, take the handle of his shoulder cannon, use that to kind of leverage his head out there. Works much better than the tip of his other gun. Carefully do it like that. Don't put a lot of force on this because you could snap it off. But it seems to be the best way to get his head out. Now, it shouldn't be like that. You should never have to use a tool to transform your Transformer, but it does happen from time to time. Tolerances are always, up for individual interpretation, or at least, individual figures, so you never know what you're going to get there. All right, so we got his robot mode. You're going to take his little shoulder cannon, put it here on the one little hole. So it only goes on the one side on this guy. You can't plug it in either side. Well, then again, that is like the Voyager, isn't it? All right, and then we take his blaster thing, put it in this hand. There you go. Classic G1 Soundwave. And, I mean, he looks the part, right? He looks the way Soundwave should. He hits all the major motifs. He's got the legs. He's got the door chest. He's got the shoulder details, all that stuff. And he's very clean looking, too, right? Doesn't have a bunch of kibble. He's got, the little backpack thing that's reminiscent of the Voyager. But he's kind of always had that little detail, so it works. He's a very, very clean looking little figure. Now, as far as his tolerances, they're a little hit or miss. The head's on a pretty tight ball joint, which is fine. The shoulders, They swing back and forth. They're very tight as well, so just be careful you don't like snap this little stem here. And they do lift up, again, very tightly, so at least the shoulders won't flop around. His elbows, however, are quite weak on my copy. Like, they're strong enough to, you know, stay where you put them, but they can be moved very easily. So not something I'm crazy about. They especially flop around a bit in the cassette mode, so I don't like that. This thing, I think, is that a flap? Does that lift up? Oh, it does. Okay. Yeah, so he's kind of got like the little skirt flap thing where his buttons go, so that's nice. The hips are ball jointed. They're a little bit loose, but not too bad. It's got the thigh swivel here, single bend knees that go to about a 90 and a little bit past straight, and then ball jointed feet. However, the way that they're kind of inserted in there, you don't really get anything in the way of tilt out of them, which is a shame, right? If they just given us a little more clearance here, you could actually tilt his ankles, unlike most of the core class toys. So he's, you know, pretty average when it comes to articulation and core classes, but I will say that he does, more than any of the other core class G1 guys, just look the part of his classic design. So, you know, I think they really hit the nail on the head when it comes to his robot mode. But to be fair, based on the different Soundwave toys they've released over the years, he seems to be one of the easiest designs to nail, right? There are just certain design aspects of Soundwave that just work, which is why the original Soundwave toy, despite being very old, you know, very limited articulation, is still a very popular mold, and it gets used for quite a bit. Right? They did that Shattered Glass Soundwave, which was like an eHobby exclusive. They had like the Linkin Park Soundwave. They got that J Balvatron. That's just a Soundwave Reed Echo. So that's a very popular mold, and you know, for good reason, because it just works so well, and it translates itself pretty well into more articulated figures. Okay, here's our Voyager Soundwave again, so we can do a robot mode comparison. And again, overall, they look very similar to one another. There are obviously some proportion differences, and the coloration's quite different between these two. Our core class uses purely cartoon-based colors, so a lighter blue with the red eyes. Whereas the Netflix Soundwave, they made the very odd decision to use the toy-accurate, very dark blue with red eyes. And not even painted red eyes, but light-piped red eyes, so you can barely see his eyes. And it's something I complained about during the Soundwaves review. You know, when it comes to his colorations, you kind of need to pick one or the other. You either go light blue with the red eyes or dark blue with the yellow, because you need those eyes to pop. And if you mix that up, it looks really weird. So our new guy definitely does a better job of capturing, you know, the color scheme, or at least, you know, one of the color schemes. Another thing is that the Voyager Soundwave just has some, you know, details and some added kibble and stuff that come from the fact that he is a retool of a Soundwave with a very different alt mode, and that's something that kind of compromises his design. Like, he's still got the landing skid things on his forearms. He has this, you know, butt flap thing, which is like the cassette buttons, but then he's got faux cassette buttons on the front rather than just like picking one and rolling with it. Whereas this guy, he uses the actual buttons from the cassette mode as his like front little pelvic flap there, which, yeah, it makes that flap wider and maybe, you know, gives him a less streamlined robot mode, but it feels a lot better, right? It doesn't feel like some bizarre transformation cheat that just ends up giving the guy two sets of buttons. So, yeah, I don't know. I really wish they wouldn't have gone that route with this guy, because you can see here, like, okay, yeah, it might be a little slimmer, but, I mean, by a fairly small margin, right? Nobody's looking at this and be like, oh, well, I would buy Core Soundwave, but his skirt flap's too wide. Like, nobody's saying that. That is not a criticism anyone has of this toy. If anything, they really just hate his feet sticking up in cassette mode. So overall, I think this little toy just does a much better job at being Generation 1 Soundwave than the more, you know, full-scale guy. Which is also a very big turnaround from what we've seen with the G1 core class figures. Not only have all the other core classes been pretty far from how their deluxe or Voyager class molds look, especially in the case of like Megatron and Bumblebee, but they've all made some kind of design choices which put them a bit further away from how they're really supposed to be depicted. So this guy kind of breaks the trend and becomes a better representation of his character than, you know, the Voyager Deluxe or whatever. So I gotta give him props for that. Now I know that this has been a very popular core class toy. I know I had to fight a good bit to get one of these. Like, Dracodon's been fairly easy to find in the wild because, you know, it's not a classic character, it's just some random skeletal Predacon. You know, it doesn't have the name recognition, whereas the Soundwaves, they'll be the first things to disappear off the shelves when they restock. And, you know, for one, obviously, it's Soundwave, and he's incredibly popular. Like, I'd argue more popular than, like, Megatron or Starscream. People love Soundwave. And he just works as a miniature version of the classic design. So I think there's a lot to be had here. So do I think he's worth picking up? Yeah, I very much do. I know distribution with this third wave has been pretty wonky, so you're probably more likely to catch him on a online restock than finding him in stores. I haven't seen one in stores in a bit now. But if you're into the core class, if you don't mind it, or you like the core class, he is 100% worth picking up. He is a very, very good little Soundwave. Of course, that is just how I feel about this toy. Now I want to know what you all think of him. Do you like this new Soundwave? Do you see him as being a worthy interpretation of G1 Soundwave? Or do you find him lacking in some kind of way? Or maybe you just don't like core class stuff? Anyway, I'd love to get all your guys' feedback down in the comments section. If you enjoyed this review, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know you want to see more stuff like this. If you do want to see more like this, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you always get a heads up when I post something new. If you'd like to become a member of the channel and join us on members-only live streams, get a chance to ask some questions for a monthly Q&A video, and get a shout-out for your support in that Q&A video, check out the join button where you can become a channel member for as little as $1.99 a month. I thank you for joining me for this look at the brand new Tformers Kingdom Core Class Soundwave. And with all that said, I will see you next time.